People love that phrase. You know the one, those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. You hear it on graduation stages and yearbook quotes. Every time something terrible happens and somebody wants to sound wise about it. But that phrase is a lie, because the more time you sit with it, the clearer it gets, because it lets a lot of people off the hook who just shouldn't be. The quote comes from a philosopher named George Santayana. He wrote it in 1905, and here's the thing. He didn't even say it. At least, not like that, anyway. What he actually wrote was, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. That's a very different sentence than the one that we passed around. Remember is not the same as learn. Condemned is not the same as doomed. The original quote was about memory, but what we turned it into was a lecture on personal responsibility. Somewhere along the way, it got flattened. It got flattened into a line you can put on a coffee mug. And the coffee mug version says, if you study enough, if you read enough, watch enough documentaries, you're going to be protected from the past. You're not going to repeat the same mistakes. You're going to be one of the smart ones. It is a comforting idea, right? It makes responsibility personal, which feels solvable, but that is just not true. The people who repeat history are not the ones who forget it. They're the ones who studied it and liked how it ended. The architects of modern voter suppression, right? They're not confused about Jim Crow. They read about it. They noticed it worked. The people writing about abortion laws right now, they're pulling from an 1873 statute called the Comstock Act. That's not a coincidence. That is research. The people running the current prison system, they understood exactly what the 13th Amendment allowed. Slavery as punishment for a crime. They didn't stumble into that loophole. They went looking for it. So when people say those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it, what they're actually describing is the victims. Yeah, not the people doing the repeating. So here's the part that really matters. The people who most needed to know the history were the ones most aggressively kept from it. Enslaved people in this country were legally banned from learning how to read. Indigenous children were beaten in government boarding schools, all for speaking their own language. In Tulsa, what happened in 1921 was for the next 80 years either excluded from textbooks or reduced to a footnote. Mexican American kids in the 1950s, they were punished for speaking Spanish in class. And now we want to turn around and say the problem is that the people didn't study hard enough? That's not a gap in education. That's a policy. Someone made it. And someone is benefiting from it. So the better question is not whether you learned history or not. It's who taught you the version that you know? What did they leave out? Who did they make the hero? Who did they make invisible? History doesn't erase itself over time. It gets edited by people on purpose. The textbooks in your 8th grade classroom had an author. The author had a publisher. That publisher had a board. And that board had politics. And by the time that book got to you, it had been through so many filters that what you ended up reading wasn't actually history. It was somebody's version of it handed to you as the whole story. So we got to stop saying that phrase, those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. That's not the real problem. The real problem is the people that are repeating history right now are not confused by it. They know exactly what they're doing. They studied it. They picked up the playbook. They're running it again because it worked the first time. The rest of us are finding out in real time what our teachers either didn't know or didn't tell us. And we're supposed to catch up while the damage is already done. That's not a failure of memory. That's the cost of curriculum, a curriculum that someone else wrote for us.